G'day, here we go, let's do it, not too much chatter. If you haven't seen the recipe creation video, you can watch that and see how we got to this stage. This is beer number 5 in the NEIPA series of 2020, and it's going to be a no-chill, just to prove that you can do it and it can be just as good. Let's get into it. I will mention through the video the hops that I use. I use experimental hops in this brew. You use whatever hops you like. I'll mention it in the video again anyway. Let's get into it. Cheers. Might be a little bit hard to see here, but I fill it to the 32 litre mark, which in my Brewzilla 65 is about 31 litres. That should leave us with about 7.5 litre sparge. I'm using the Pro bottom for the mash pipe, just so the overflow pipe doesn't get in the way. Make sure the bottom's seated correctly. The strike temp is 71, but we're going to turn it down to 67 for the mash. I add my lactic acid and my salts. Of course, you'll have to adjust this for your water. I turn the pump on and give it a good mix. Now, probably wouldn't need to use rice hulls in a thin grain bed like this, but I'll chuck some in anyway. Just a couple of handfuls. We'll see how we go. Probably not needed. See, the difference is this is much wider, so you get a thinner mash bed. So there's a few advantages, as in flow and speed of sparge and that, but there's also disadvantages, which can be speed of sparge if it goes too quick, and there's not as much filtering goes along. Like if you're doing a really small beer, like a 4% or 3.5% in this, you'll have a little bit of issues clearing the wort. But whereas in the skinnier Brewzilla 35, you won't, because you've still got a depth of grain bed. This shouldn't be too bad, because I've got 7 kilo of grain nearly, you know. You might be wondering where the flour is. It's 100 grams of flour, which is nothing in a 7 kilo grain bill, so I just mixed it into the grain. You can't even tell it's there. Other versions I did stir it into the top after I put the grain in, but I just found it's easier just to mix it in with the grain. If you mix too much, you actually end up creating more dough balls, I find. If you sort of let it underlet by itself, much less. So I'll just sort of spread it out on top. See how it goes. And you'll also notice that's why I mash like that at the start, because I find if you sort of go to stir, you sort of roll it into balls. Not always, sometimes. Looks like my muesli I had this morning for breakfast. I'm going to let that settle down for 5 minutes as usual, then we'll get the pump on. It's been 5 minutes. I'll fill you in about this in a bit. But I can see, you know, the water's, it's about right, I reckon. Now what this is for, if I get this out of the way, what this is for is there are better ways to do it properly. But I can put that there. I usually use the centre pipe to tell, you know, my water levels and how much I'm building up, but I'm not using it today just to keep it out of the way. But I can go, and if I cut that off to about there, I can see that's 2 inches above the water. If I'm going up above there, then I'm probably going too fast. And don't worry, that won't be in the water. Although there was many years I used zip ties or cable ties to hold my manifold together in my old Esky mash tun. And there's nothing wrong with me. Alright, so that's it, 5 minutes. Let's give it a go, eh? This is full bore. I'll just try and wash down this somewhere. As I said, I've already dropped it to 66. 67 will be alright, 66. It's probably going too fast. There's no point going that fast. Let's just see how we go. That's nice. That's just nice. I don't think we're going to have a problem with back up too much. The good thing about having 10 litres underneath the pipe is that I've got a lot to play with. You know, this could probably go up to here and I'd still have a lot of water over the elements at the bottom. At the moment I only have the 500 watt on, which should be fine. If not, I'd turn the 500 off and put the 1000 watt element on just to keep the mash at temp, but 500 watt should be okay. We're already at temp, you know what I mean, from a higher strike temp. So it'll hardly come on. So I'm just going to leave it and we'll see what happens. I'll whack the lid on to try and stop some heat loss. We've probably come up close to an inch, like 3/4 of an inch, which is like totally normal. Like totally. Do it the messy way. Alright, we are 10 minutes in, or 15 minutes really from the start. We're still sitting about exactly where we were before. Got a nice big flow, nothing to worry about. I'm going to take a little reading for pH for my own records. I whacked it in the freezer for 15 minutes to cool down, and we'll get a reading. I'm not even going to stir this, although I could. I think we're looking pretty good. I could probably go to full bore, but I'm nearly there anyway. Just going to leave it as it is. We're halfway through. This probably isn't needed at all, and it could ruin my flow. But I'm just giving it a stir, just having a look. I haven't done a brew like this with 7 kilo as a single batch, so I'm just checking things out. It might be a good idea to give it another 5-minute rest before you turn on the pump. Everything's going fine. It's probably been about an hour now. I'm just going to leave it another 10 minutes or so, and then we're going to go into mash out. Mash out won't take long. We've got a lot of flow, but still, I'll give it 10 minutes ramp, 10 minutes mash out. Looking at it now, I think the amount of water we had was probably pretty good. Beersmith. I haven't used Beersmith for a while, and I haven't brewed a single batch for a long time. Beersmith said 32 litres. I've actually got 33, so I might have oversparged a bit there. Just jumping in again here. I actually didn't oversparge. I'd forgotten, because I hadn't used a 65 litre for a while, that I'm a litre out. So when it was saying 33 litres in my Brewzilla 65, it actually was 32 litres. This was first wort hops. I was a little bit late, but that's okay. I dropped it to 4 grams for the no-chill version, and that's Warrior I used. And you simply boil for 60 minutes. I added my lactose 10 minutes before the end. Just adding the Whirlpool arm in here. You may or may not have seen my old homemade one. I ended up buying this stainless one. It's just easier to handle. But my homemade one worked perfectly fine. Just going to turn the boil off. I'm going to let it circulate and come down to probably about 95 just before I put the hops in. Turn the pump on. That won't take long. I just want it to cool a touch, you know. But I'm not taking it down below to 80. I'm not doing that because I'm no chilling. Now this has only been going about 5 minutes now, but we're down about to where I want to be, about 95. So I'm going to get those hops in. This is 30 grams of Zappa and 30 grams of HPA-016, just for a change. I would suggest for anybody else to go with one of my sort of original recipes, which would be Citra, Simcoe and Amarillo. Or you could throw some Mosaic in there too, about 20 grams of each. I was going to whirlpool this for like half an hour, but the temperature's down to 86 and I want to get this in the cube in the mid 80s. So it's been about 15 minutes, but I'm going to stop the whirlpool and get it into the cube. Cool that down, put the edge in, and then we'll do it all tomorrow. I can't find the footage of me putting the starter into the sink of cold water, cooling it down a bit, and then throwing it into the brew fridge that the fermenter was going to go into the next day on a stir plate. You don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can just sort of give it a shake every time you walk past. And so I put the yeast in, and I just let the starter go till the next day when I was ready to pitch the yeast. Just that 24 hours is plenty enough to build up the starter and get it going. Instead of doing a starter, of course, you could add 2 packets of liquid yeast or 2 packets of dry yeast should do it. It's a big beer, so it's not going to hurt to help it along a bit. Personally, I'd probably go with like a London Fog or London Ale3, and I'd be fermenting at 19 degrees. And if you can do under pressure like I do, I only go about 5 psi, and it gives much less trouble when dry hopping and things like that. The first dry hop for me is usually always day 2 or day 3. If you're taking readings, you probably want to get down 1.035, something like that. High Krausen is good, as always mentioned, but it's really good just to be just past it. So you're not blowing off all those really good aromas that you're putting into the beer. As far as dry hop goes, I think like you can push it as far as you want. You have to be a lot more careful when you do, but around 150 grams for the first dry hop and about 150 grams for the second dry hop too. Timing for the second dry hop is, for me, is usually around day 5. You want to be probably under 1.020, somewhere in between there and your finishing gravity. So perfectly you'd go in 2 or 3 points before your finishing gravity, and then bump the temp as well and finish that off in a few days. As far as variety goes, I always like to put a lot of Citra in the first dry hop. So I might go 100 grams of Citra in the first dry hop and 50 grams of Simcoe or Amarillo or something like that. Or you could even go 150 grams of Citra, or whatever your favourite hop is for these style of beers. And the second one, I mix it up a little bit more, maybe something for aroma, maybe even Cascade, a mix of Cascade and a bit of Citra again, just because I love it. You might go El Dorado or whatever your favourite hop is. It really doesn't matter as long as you like it. Cheers. This is the beer here. Now this one has a pretty delicate aroma. There is a lot there though. But this is using mostly Eclipse, the new Eclipse hop, which we've all known for years as HPA-016. And it was still called HPA-016 when I made this. And to be honest, there is not much difference between this beer and the regular not no chill beer. Not much difference at all. There's a little bit, like as I said in the recipe video, it's theoretically, or on paper I should say, it is about 10 IBUs more bitter apparently than the other NIPAs, but I can't taste that difference. Maybe just slightly, but I think it actually makes it better. There's something there that, you know, I like a little bit more bitter beer, but I wouldn't call this beer bitter by any means. I ran out of footage to talk over, so I'll just mention that my ferments all went from between 7 to 10 days. They were mostly around that 7 to 8 day mark, usually around 8 days. And then we go into cold crash, and I'm going to say it again, the cold crash is extremely, extremely important. You need to cold crash for at least 3 days, maybe 4 if you've got a slow fridge. You need to get that hop material out of your drop, right out of suspension. You don't want it just from the top, you want it right down the bottom. And when you're transferring, plan to leave a litre or 2 behind at least. You don't want to be picking up that dry hop material. I leave about 5 litres of material behind, but I dry hop pretty big. So there's a lot of dry hop material because that's all still in there from the first dry hop. And plus you've got all your usual yeast and that, and then about 2 or 3 litres above that. You do not want to transfer that hop matter to your keg, otherwise that's why they can go, wow, it tasted great in the fermenter, I put it in the keg and now it's tasting bitter. That's why. They've transferred too much, they've tried to get that last litre out and they've started picking up hop material. Be very careful and take it easy at the end. Besides that, good luck. They're a great beer and you can do them very successfully no chill. And I did it without dry hopping in the cube, or cube hopping as it's called. I don't particularly like that method. You'll still get a good beer, but I don't like that hop material sitting in the cube, and then you've got to try and either strain it, or it all ends up in the fermenter. Then you've got even more hop material, pain in the butt. So you can do it. Use whatever your favourite hops are. As I said, this is experimental hops in here. That's why in the video I didn't sort of stress too much. I told you what hops I was using, but I kept saying use other hops. I'll put up what I think's a great recipe. You can follow this original one if you like, but I think you'll get better results with a Citra and the classic hops, or whatever your favourite hops are, as I've mentioned a few times. That's enough yakking. This video is long enough. Thank you very much for watching. Like, subscribe, share. Thank you to my patrons, because without them, these videos couldn't happen. Cheers.